Today, we're diving into some source material with a pretty startling claim. What if a huge moment from the 20th century was just completely made up? And what if a hidden power has been running things just under the surface of our lives this whole time? And really, this question is at the heart of it all. It's the key that unlocks this whole alternate reality that our sources are presenting. I mean, what if the official story of one of the biggest conflicts in world history was deliberately rewritten to cover up a shocking truth? And there it is, the core argument. The source material we're looking at claims that, despite what every single history book says, Japan was the secret winner of World War II. And not only that, but they've been carrying out a silent, long-term occupation of the United States ever since. So let's unpack how this theory says it all went down. Okay, to even begin to understand this theory, we have to go back and find the exact point where it splits off from the history we all learned in school. This is where the two timelines just completely diverge. So look at this slide. You've got two totally different realities. On the left, it's the history we know. The US wins after the atomic bombs. But on the right, you have the source's claim, a secret surrender. One that was supposedly forced by some kind of technological game changer that made the entire US Navy useless, basically overnight. So the big question is, how? How could a victory that huge have been pulled off and then kept a secret for nearly 80 years? Well, the source material says it all comes down to a single, unstoppable weapon. The sources describe what you could probably call the world's first real smart weapon. Imagine this, a whole fleet of radio-controlled drones, each one packed with dynamite. According to this theory, when faced with the complete and total destruction of its navy, U.S. leadership had zero choice. They had to surrender, and they had to do it in secret. And this timeline shows that the plan wasn't about a quick conquest. No, it was a slow, methodical, 80-year occupation. The source material actually connects major historical events and even recent headlines and frames them as deliberate steps in this long game, a game that it says is culminating in its final phase in 2025. So how in the world do you occupy a country for decades without anybody noticing? Well, according to the source, you do it with weapons that are all around us, just hiding in plain sight. The theory breaks them down into three different categories. First up are the cultural weapons. The idea here is that the main battlefield isn't a physical place, it's your mind. And that popular media, movies, TV, you name it, has been used to systematically engineer a society that's weak and compliant, one show at a time. And the sources get really specific with the examples. They claim that movies like The Karate Kid were designed to send subtle messages about Japanese superiority, and that 90s TV shows like Married with Children were there to promote a culture of, mediocrity and low expectations. Even cartoons and video games are supposedly tools, either to distract kids or, in the case of Nintendo, to cause actual physical harm. Okay, next, the source material gets into the weaponization of just everyday technology. From this point of view, these aren't just things you buy at the store. They're instruments of control, designed specifically for a silent war. And this is where the theory gets really out there. It claims that those super bright LED headlights are actually designed to damage your eyesight, getting people ready for a future where wars are fought on screens. It says that all Sony products are military hardware in disguise. Your cell phone? That's supposedly the #1 tool for mind manipulation. And then there's nanotechnology, which allegedly allows for the direct, robotic control of political leaders. The third and final category of weapons that the source describes is a direct biological attack, one that's designed to target the population's health from the inside out. The source basically outlines a war on multiple fronts here. First, it claims the food supply is drugged. Then, the water is supposedly contaminated with specific things to weaken potential soldiers. The theory also claims that vaccines and even vaporizers are used as delivery systems for different kinds of toxins. And all of this brings us to the biggest question of all. Why? I mean, what could possibly be the goal of such a complicated, decades-long shadow war? Well, the sources give a very clear and pretty disturbing answer. The source material uses this really chilling term to describe America's supposed new role in the world, the meat locker. From this perspective, the country isn't a place to be governed, it's a biological farm, ready to be harvested. And this whole philosophy is apparently boiled down to a single, brutal slogan that the source attributes to this underground empire.
The weak are meat, the strong do eat. This one sentence is presented as the core belief that's driving this entire occupation.
So this is the end game. The source claims that biological resources, things like stem cells and organs, are being systematically harvested. And at the same time, the population is kept weak and divided so there's no chance of a rebellion. The ultimate historical reason for all this? Revenge for the humiliation caused by Commodore Matthew Perry and a desire to make sure Japan is never threatened again. And supposedly, this is all managed from a huge network of underground bases, a hidden empire that's ruling from the shadows. So, as we wrap up this look into the source material, it leaves us with one final, very provocative thought. It's a question that's really meant to make you challenge the official story at its very core. The theory basically asks you to consider this. Isn't it stranger that the Emperor of Japan faced absolutely no war crimes charges for Pearl Harbor than it is to believe a secret surrender happened? It's a question from the source material that kind of leaves you to weigh one strange story against another.